Good evening, everybody. And in this video, I want to show you how to design a system that can generate the file names dynamically at runtime. So we want to develop a system or a template that is extremely generic enough, and you don't have to essentially hard code the file names. What it does, it essentially uses mask and essentially replaces the value of a mask at runtime and generates a file name. Let me show you some nice demo, and hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about. So I am gonna share my screen, and hopefully you see my screen now. Don't worry, I'll show you the code. So for example, while making data lake, maybe you wanna give your file name the year, the current month, and let's say the day, right? And maybe you wanna use some random GUID.json. So basically tomorrow, if you wanna change the format, let's say you just decided to do, oh, you know what? I just wanna do year and month.json, right? So if you see hard coding, basically, you might say something like this, right? You will say something like this, then you'll use the format. This is not a good method. And to answer why this is not a good method, because anytime you want to make changes to the file name, you have to go inside the code and change. Is there a better way to do that? Yes, there is. And that is exactly what I'm about to show you. So meet a smart way to do this. For example, here you specify your mask. So for example, let's say I want to have the file name as year_GUID.csv. There you go. So here you have the current year that is again injected at runtime. Oh, you know what? I decided I want to change my mask. Maybe I want to do year, month, day, and then the GUID. Okay, no problem. There you go. Oh, you know what? Want to change it to JSON, right? You know what? Look at that. So automatically at runtime, what you're observing is it essentially replaces the value, right? So this becomes your alias, right? So for example, maybe you want to create a file name like this, right? So all you do is basically specify your mask value, and automatically the values are injected at runtime. It's a very, very smart way, because you might be delivering files, you might be generating files. This is an amazing way to generate file names, and that way you don't have to hard code the particular file format, right? So essentially you don't want to do this, right? You want to essentially have mask. So that way, anytime you want to change things, all you gotta do, so you just gotta change the file mask, and there you go. The changes of course reflect, right? For example, I do have a custom variable. For example, let's say you want to use a customer ID or whatever that variable is, right? So okay, no problem. Well, we could essentially, let's say I want to do like something like this, right? So essentially you're defining the variable, as you can see here, right? So how does this work? Let me allow you to give a short description here. The concept is fairly straightforward, right? So what we do is basically we have a mask name and a mask value, and we have a type. Now, depending upon the type, whether it's a type 1 or type 2, if it is type 1, which means it has to inject the value at runtime, which means this is a string Python code which is stored, and the value is evaluated at runtime, right? So for example, here I have a mask for month, here I have a mask for day, here I have a mask for GUID. Again, you can even query databases. You could essentially do literally anything with this, right? So here, if you observe, I have a type 2, which means it's a custom variable, right? So here again, JSON, CSV. So now the system is so generic. So you specify the mask, your job becomes specifying the mask in the code, right? Let's say you want to do this, right? And automatically it will replace the value at runtime. As you can see, tomorrow, if you decided to change, well, easy, right? Just change the mask the way you want. There you go, right? So it's literally that easy to use this, right? And how that works is fairly straightforward. The code essentially iterates over all the masks that you have. So again, in your company, if you are processing data, I recommend using this approach. So this will essentially iterate over the mask. If the type is 1, what it does is essentially does an eval, and essentially converts a string Python code. It runs that and then essentially replaces the value here, as you can see. And if the type is 2, it's simply gonna replace the value. It's a static one, right? 1 means inject Python code, 2 means essentially some variable that you define. So that's pretty much it. Now no more hard coding file names, right? So use simply a mask and generate file names the way you want. So here you can see I can do that, or maybe I want to do that, right? It's literally so easy, right? I can literally build any, as you can see, right, flawlessly, right? So this is a very amazing way to, let me share my screen. This is a very interesting way to generate file names. You might be having Lambda functions, you might be having your own processes. These processes are gonna write data to S3 and you must be using a file name, right? So I strongly encourage you to use this mask and essentially not hard code the format, because now if you want to change items, all you gotta do is change in the environment variable, the mask, and automatically your code reflects that file name. You see? So we again use this concept internally as well. We generate a lot of files, and we don't want to essentially hard code the path or the format, right? We essentially have an env variable where we define the mask. Anytime we want to change, we simply change the mask and the code reflects that appropriate file name. So I hope you enjoyed an amazing concept. I'll leave the source code in the description. Let me know your thoughts below. By the way, you know what I'm actually thinking? I'm also thinking to convert this into a library. So I'll essentially make an open source Python library which is powered by this concept. I will use a TinyDB as a database and we'll write classes, and now we'll have CRUD operation. You can add a mask, you can delete a mask, you can get all the masks, and then basically given a mask, it will just gonna generate the file name. So we're gonna convert that into a library as an open source project. So that's it for this video. I'll leave the source code, so do check that out. And if you have any more questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next upcoming video.